Well, good morning. So glad you guys are joining me. Hello, Christo. Hello, Donna.
Hi.
So sweet to have you join us.
Well, thank you.
Yes. So these calls, Ascension with A Course in Miracles, we did them for well over a year, almost just about every Wednesday. And then I needed to take a little break because couple things. One, I was trying to find a different venue to host these calls on so that we could reach more people. And then I ended up having to help my daughter with my grandbaby while my daughter's husband was or is out of town. So I've had a lot of opportunity to spend with my grandson, making some of these Wednesdays a little bit more challenging to attend. But anyways, here we are. And Miss Kat, good to see you here with us. So lovely.
Thank you.
I don't know how many of our regulars will be able to join us since this was kind of a last minute today. Hey, I have time. Let's do this. But I was feeling it really, really clear on my heart to share today a particular lesson from the Course in Miracles, because I was getting this very clear, you can call it a download, an intuition, or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. I was experiencing a knowingness that pretty soon, and by pretty soon, I know we've all heard pretty soon. Everybody here is on the same page as it pertains to what's happening in the world, but pretty soon, within the month of April, some things are going to get really stirred up. They're going to be very defining moments for humanity. What that means to me is that we are going to be presented with very, very clear choice. We are either going to choose to stand on the side with God, with freedom, and it's not we stand with God and then we get freedom, is that God gave us freedom. We need to choose to accept the salvation that's already been given to us. So when we stand with freedom, it's because we are no longer blocking God's desire for us. Or we're going to go the path of safety, which is to follow the ego, and it is to look externally for sources of to keep us safe, keep us healthy, keep us whatever. So we have been moving in this direction. This has been thousands of years. We know that our holy brother Jesus came 2,000 years ago, many before him, many since him, to teach us the same thing, that we can only have one master. We're going to either have God as our master because it's the presence of love. It's the all-knowing presence that really, truly loves all of humanity because it created us equal in its image, and it wants to have us experience life the way that life is designed to be experienced, in freedom. These teachers have been telling us that we have to choose love over fear. The only way anybody can block God is to listen to the voice of their ego, which means they are actually blocking the voice of God. There's just no other way. And when we block the voice of God, we create havoc on this planet. So for millennia, thousands of years, many human incarnations that we have been experiencing here, we have been incarnating into a 3D planet, a planet that is primarily focused on one thing and one thing only, and that is its own self. When we listen to the voice of the ego, we are completely selfish. It's all about me. It's my needs come first. Yes, if I'm taking care of you, it's because I'm getting something out of it. And that's what happens when we are unconscious of the voice for God or spirit or Buddha or Allah or Bambi. It does not matter what we call the source of all that is. The life force is the life force is the life force, no matter what we label it. We have been conditioned to worship external beings that didn't give us life, And you could say that your mom and dad gave you life, so you should worship them. Well, here's the thing. Your mom and dad can't give you life if they don't have the life force in them that was given to them by God first. So if we go back to the beginning, where does the life force start? We've got to acknowledge that that's where it comes from, even if we enter through portals called mom and dad for these incarnations. When we are clear that we are listening to only the creative source, only listening to God, we cannot help but want to share what we have with all of our brothers and sisters, because we recognize the union, the holiness, the oneness, being all sons and daughters of the same creative source. But we don't know each other to be safe that way, because we've been conditioned by external forces to fear one another. You're only safe with these people. Don't go talk to strangers. If you're Catholic, you can't talk to the Methodist. If you're, Russian, you don't talk to the Americans. If you're Black, you don't talk to the whites. If you're yellow, you don't talk to these. So we have been conditioned into not only specialness, but specialness that is right and wrong, which leaves very little room for curiosity and for people to want to go out of their own way to get to know others. So the world today is the result of thousands upon thousands of years of conditioning into believing that there is something outside of us that is more powerful, more valuable, more eternal than God within. To be able to move through what is coming, which is a massive test. And I know most of the people who will listen to this are on the same page, understanding that there is such a thing as understanding that our Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, when it states that all men are created equal, endowed by the Creator, by God, with the same inalienable rights, is no different than understanding the truth of humanity, the truth of reality, that there is only one creator, and that creator created all. And that's why we are all equal. So because we have not been treated that way, incarnation after incarnation, we have bought into that there are the haves and the have-nots, the 1%, the 99%, the rich, the poor, the Black, the white, the this, the that, all of those crazy things that we all bought into. Well, as it states in the Old Testament, and I believe it says it in the New Testament as well, you can only worship one God. Either it is going to be God or it's going to be money. You can only have one master, I believe is actually what it says, God or money. When God is the master, we're operating in oneness, we're operating in kindness, we're operating in the awareness that we are all equal. When we understand what God is, truly understand what God is. When we are operating so that money is our master, it's because we are operating in separation. We believe in lack. There's not enough to go around, so I got to give more than you. So I'm going to create all kinds of systems and hierarchies so that I'm at the top and you're at the bottom. So when we operate from the ego mind in separation, guess what those ego minds want to do? Because they understand you can only worship one master. It's either money, them, or God. What do? They teach us that God is not what God is. They teach us that the creative source is out there on a cloud somewhere. It's patriarchal, like they tend to be. It's going to be punishing if you don't behave. You might get rewards if you're nice, but if you're naughty, you're going to go to hell, like Santa Claus, another bearded man on a cloud. So we are given this conditioning that has us not only not understand what God is, but has us submit our freedoms, and we become servants to those who are the money ruling class. We are in the middle of the collapse of that story. It has served us well. We incarnated to play that game. When you understand that you choose your incarnation, you chose to do that. I chose to be part of that game. But what is happening is that many of us chose to incarnate at this time to be the ones who are willing to change our mind to shift from worshiping the almighty dollar, which now is not worth too much, or the almighty ruble or whatever it is. We are moving from worshiping that which is maintained as a source of power by very few people, by the way. Very few people use money to control the world, but the rest of us buy into it out of fear because we don't know who we are. So those of us who agreed in this lifetime to come to know who we are so we can realign with God, so that we can make our master the only master that there is, which is the creative source, no matter what you call it, we are having to do the work that is necessary to transform our minds completely from the old way by renewing it with the new way. And today, what was inspired to me to share today is one of the lessons from A Course in Miracles. If you have your book, it's lesson 71. And the title of this lesson, how perfect is this? As you all know, when I come to these classes, I always just, I wait to be told what to share, because this is not my class. This is an opportunity for me to share with anybody who's willing to hear. And I share what my master, my creator, my God, my brother, father, mother, whatever you want to call it, the source of my beingness guides me to share. And the title of lesson 71 is Only God's Plan for Salvation Will Work. So isn't that perfect? So while people are running around like chickens with their head cut off, trying to hold on to the old, trying to fix the old, voting for the same old people, expecting different results, perpetuating the following the rules of those who have clearly shown us that the rules that they impose on the masses are not the ones that they follow, but they don't see that. I used to not see that because I was scared. I wanted to be safe. There was an underlying fear that I operated from, even though I thought I was free because I lived in America. I operated under an underlying fear that if I didn't follow the rules, I was going to be in trouble. And as most of you know, I don't care about the rules anymore. I don't really follow them. And that's a whole nother story. But anyways, moving on this bridge where we are literally crossing over to connect with God, we need to make the choice that only God's plan for salvation will work. We cannot waffle between the two. Many people on the spiritual journey waffle between the two. They say that they only listen to God, but in reality, they only listen to the ego voice. And when they only listen to the ego voice, they have experiences that are not joyful. It might give them a sense of safety because we've been conditioned into external authorities. So we go to them and whatever they tell us, okay, it doesn't feel right, but it's what they said to do and I'm going to do it. But when you align with God, what you're being told out there not only doesn't affect you because it doesn't resonate with you, your frequency gets raised to a level that what is of the ego, what is of lies does not register with you. So it's not yours to do. However, what does happen is that you have to completely trust in God. So you have to change your thought patterns. And as we change our thought patterns, we get to see all of the beliefs that we held that were out of accord with high frequencies. And by that, I mean that we're out of accord with love, with joy, with compassion and kindness, and with creativity of the new. So we have to renew our mind to open up that mental portal for more ideas to flow through us. Now they come in through the kids because they're not so stuck with their own ways, but for those new ideas to flow through each and every one of us, we've got to make the opening as wide as it can possibly can. So let me start reading. I'm going to actually, let me just check in with you. We haven't been together in so long. Kat, how are you doing? Then I'll check in with Christo. And just give me a short answer because I do want to read this whole lesson and it's 2 pages long.
Okay. You hear me?
Yes, ma'am. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
I know you're going through some changes.
Yes, and I'm having some struggles with, I'm allowing my ego to question, what exactly, did I do the right thing? And I know in my heart I did. Yet I guess it's the ego, just missing, and just I guess it's a thing for me about not wanting to be, I guess, to be totally on my own, which I have to accept that I am. That's what's meant for me to be, and to grow stronger from that. So, but I have to admit to I'm allowing myself some suffering. So I'm just kind of wallowing in that suffering for a little bit.
Well,
And
enjoy it, because it soon you won't have any more suffering. Whether you make the choice not to suffer in this lifetime or when you transition, but until then, enjoy the suffering. You're here to have that. You're here to have choice.
yeah, but my choice.
Exactly. Well, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that we were able to do this on Wednesday and reconnect. So thank you so much, sweetie. And yes, Christo, what about you? How has it been without all these calls for a couple of weeks now? Did you miss us?
Well, I suddenly realized I did. when you have it, again, then you realize how much you missed it, and how awesome it flows. It's wonderful. I mean, yesterday I had a big meeting with South Africa on Zoom for about 2 hours. It was an annual general meeting, and it was a lot of pressure for me, But after the meeting went so much smoother than the concept of anticipation, and I put in elements of fear involved with what happens if this is mentioned or that mentioned, and a lot of that stuff didn't happen. It all went very well, but recognizing that I had put so much energy into my preparation that afterwards I was exhausted.
Well, I'm glad you had a good meeting.
But it was a good meeting, but that was also a recognition of priming my attitude correctly. Better, I could have done a better attitude preparation for myself,
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
that's the alignment story, So
Good.
anyway.
Good. Glad you're here. Yuri, you had texted me and said, when are we going to have our Wednesday calls back? So here we are.
Well, thank you.
Our,
I'm so glad, and I'm doing great. I just overseeded about an acre by hand.
oh boy.
My spreader broke, but I did that yesterday, and I'm thankful that God's going to help me out with the watering.
Yes, I hear there's lots of it coming.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, so glad that you're here.
Working on my garden as well. So
awesome.
Things are really nice, and it's great to be outside and nature, and just how beautiful and appreciative I am of it.
Oh, it is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And I'll welcome Dondra and Natalia and Donna. Donna, you're here with us for the first time. Thank you for joining us. And let's look at how we can take A Course in Miracles and make it practical in our everyday life. And with this particular lesson 20 or 71, only God's plan for salvation will work, is making a decision to accept the only way that we are going to be able to move through what is coming, because the intensification of the egoic forces to control humanity is just as intense as the intensification of God's desire for us to be free, because that is how we were created. And the only reason that there's an intensification for freedom right now is because we have had the contrast, and so many have been able to see through the illusion of somebody providing you safety at the cost of your freedom. When you see through that illusion, something inside of you begins to want to connect with the source of freedom, and that's God inside. And when you connect with God inside, you lose all fear of what's happening outside. And now you get to stand up to those Well, we can call them evil forces. We can call them, egoic forces. It's all the same thing, is blocks to God. That's all that it is. And when you connect with God inside, when you connect with freedom, true freedom, the life force inside, you will not back down because you no longer have fear. If you have no fear, then you don't need to be a coward. You don't need to follow the rules. You don't need to do whatever you're doing out of fear of being hurt or being killed or losing your money or your home or whatever, as is happening to these people in Shanghai, where the government has put like 25 million people in total and complete, I'm going to call it house arrest, but it's basically, so supposedly there is some outbreak out there, not that those things don't happen, but to force everybody, 25 million people, to be in their homes with no food, with no water, and to then do some pretty evil things to them, pull their children from them, take their pets from them, and do some even worse things to these pets, because they don't want to feed those pets and take care of those pets and house those pets. So we are right now going to be seeing those who are not afraid to stand up for freedom and those who are. That's plain and simple. That's how we are going to be bifurcated. The ones who trust because they went inside and found God, and the ones who are afraid and are still looking for safety outside of them, even at the cost of their own lives. That's how insane our ego makes us. So paragraph number 1. You may not realize that the ego has set up a plan for salvation in opposition to God's. It is this plan in which you believe. Since it is the opposite of God's, you also believe that to accept God's plan in place of the ego's is to be damned. This sounds preposterous, of course. Yet after we have considered just what the ego's plan is, perhaps you will realize that, however preposterous it may be, you do believe in it. You know, the ego's plan is, do what I tell you and then you'll be okay. Follow my rules. Give me all your money. I'm going to tax you. I'm going to tell you what you can study. I'm going to tell you how many hours you're going to go to school. I'm going to tell you where you can live and cannot live. I'm going to tell you what you're allowed to wear or not wear. I'm going to tell you what you can get a license to do and what you don't have a license to do. So the ego's plan for salvation is, you have to get something, you got to give up something. And it's always based on somebody else making the decisions. That's the way the ego works. It's crazy. It's absolutely preposterous. But we have been conditioned to giving mommy and daddy power over us first, to give the teachers power, to give the preachers power, to give the government power, to give the boss power, the spouse power. So we have always been conditioned in the ways of the ego, which means that there's somebody always outside of us with more power than we have. All of that coupled with that, yeah, we should all be following God, but God is protected by the special people in churches or synagogues or temples or ashrams or whatever they might be. To get to God, you got to go through this person who has been selected as the one and only, the Pope or whatever it might be, who will help you get there. So there's always hurdles. The ego always puts up a hurdle. That's how you know the preposterous plan of the ego. It always puts out a hurdle that you have to jump through. You can't be happy without a partner. Well, that goes to Kat. You can't be safe if you don't have a security around your home. You can't be rich if you don't have a ton of money in your bank account. You can't be beautiful if your face doesn't look a certain way. So there's always something that has to be acquired for you to be okay. This is the insanity of the ego. All right, so let me keep going. Paragraph 2. So the ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. I'm going to come back to that in a second. It maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved. Let me talk about these holding grievances. I can't be happy because you found another woman. I can't be happy because you fired me. I can't be happy because you stopped talking to me. I can't be happy because, Russia's bombing whatever country that they're bombing, whatever day it happens to be, that we're looking at the news. I can't be happy because this thing happened over here. I can't be happy because my neighbor didn't get the vaccine. I can't be happy because you're not wearing a mask. The ego always, always, always holds a grievance because we're conditioned that others have power. And here's the crazy thing. It doesn't stop at others have power to help me. That's where it starts. Then it goes on to others have power to hurt me. The ego is all about help and hurt happen from the outside in terms of helping me to protect me. So the crazy part about all of this is that when we align with God within, what happens is we find that happiness is in here, safety is in here, abundance is in here, because what we're doing is we're waking ourselves up to activating the creativity that we have like God. We were created in the image of a creator. So we can't create something new because we're so busy battling something old. So the perfect time right now, this week, right now, amazing. We are in the time when we celebrate or acknowledge at the very least that 2,000 years ago, on a Friday, Good Friday, we crucified Jesus, the human person, because he was walking around telling everybody, you and the Father are one. God is in you. You don't need to listen to the money changers. As a matter of fact, they're cheating you. They're charging too much. That's not fair. That's absolutely not loving. And we had a man who happened to be Jewish, who happened to be walking around, letting people know the truth of who they were. Well, guess what? For the controllers, that is very inconvenient. So what did they do with Jesus? They crucified him. So on a Friday, Jesus is sent up to crucifixion, and 3 days later, there's a resurrection. Well, what's happening to us is the 3D world needs to be crucified. It is time to end that insanity. Now, we can't end it for anybody else. We only end it for ourselves. As within, so without. When it ends here, that has no power over you. So that we can then move down this bridge and move towards the resurrection of our own spirit. The awakening, you can call it the awakening, the resurrection, it's all the same thing. You're bringing up out from within you the truth of who you are, the power that is within us. When you do that, you don't have any more grievances with anybody outside because nobody out there can help you or hurt you because you remove power from them, you place it in here. So that's why, the ego's plan for salvation centers around grievances. Sentence number 3 says, thus, the source of salvation is constantly perceived as outside of yourself. Each grievance you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe that says, if this were different, I would be saved. The change of mind necessary for salvation is thus demanded of everyone and everything except yourself. If the government changed, if my boss gave me a promotion, if my partner was nicer, if my kids behaved, if we operate in this if, and that is one of the tricks of the ego. When all along we have had the presence of the creative source inside of us that we could have accessed all along, but we didn't for 2 reasons. One, we came in deliberately choosing to forget about that, to come to the planet and get immersed in the world. 2, we let unconscious people condition us. And all of us were at some level unconscious parents to our children, and we conditioned them into believing that we had more power than they did, or somebody else had power over us. And I can't take you on vacation because my boss didn't give me a promotion. It's always somebody else that has power. So we got conditioned into denying God inside, and we incarnated knowing we would forget about God being inside. But ours is most likely the last lifetime that happened. Children coming in after that are remembering the truth of who they are, and they're not coming in to follow the system. They're coming in to push against the system. Those are the troublemakers. And if you've got one of those troublemakers as a child, bless you. You have a guru in your midst. I know I had quite a few of them. And now my little grandson, talk about a guru there. All right, so we are recognizing ego holds grievances, blames others outside, and it's always, if they did something, then I would be okay. If they did something, then I'm not going to be okay. Power out there, always power out there. So the role, paragraph 3, the role assigned to your own mind in this plan, the ego's plan, then is simply to determine what other than itself must change if you are to be saved. That's why you can never, ever find inner peace, because you're constantly looking for the next thing that's going to make you happy, make you peaceful. There's no rest when you're constantly chasing a carrot on a stick. That's the way the ego designs its plan. Sentence 2, according to this insane plan, rightly labeled this insane plan, according to this insane plan, any perceived source of salvation is acceptable provided that it will not work. That's why nothing that we attempt to do with our ego has lasting efficacy. It cannot, because the ego is a temporary aspect that we use in an incarnation. And it's a thought system that blocks God, who is the eternal, infinite one. So if we are not following that which isn't part of the eternal plan, that you should be happy forevermore, and don't be so concerned about this lifetime, it's temporary. Enjoy it, do the best that you can, and you're going to keep reincarnating. Don't worry if you're alone, because you're never alone. You're one with all that is. So if we know this truth, then we don't buy into the illusion of chasing to get so that you can be okay. So according to this insane plan, any perceived source of salvation is acceptable, provided it will not work. This ensures that the fruitless search will continue, for the illusion persists that although this hope has always failed, yeah, we really want things to work out for us, but that never works. There is still grounds for hope in other places and in other things. Well, if this marriage doesn't work, the other one will. If this job doesn't work, the next one will. We always have, the one is not going to work, but the next one will. Again, carrot on a stick, so we keep chasing. So another person will yet serve better. Another situation will yet offer success. Always chasing the next. Paragraph 4. Such is the ego's plan for your salvation. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine. Seek, but do not find. For what could more surely guarantee that you will not find salvation than to channelize all your efforts in searching for it where it is not? Looking for love in all the wrong places. We've heard that message. Looking for happiness in all the wrong places. Looking for peace in all the wrong places. Looking for abundance in all the wrong places. Not that we're not going to do things in the world, but we need to start doing it from already having wholeness inside. What am I going to bring to the world? What is this beautiful thing that I'm going to share with the world that it will provide the financial abundance? What is this wonderful joy in me that I'm going to share with a partner? And I'm going to attract the one that is at the frequency that I am putting out at. You see, the 3D world of the ego is low frequency. So just about everything of the 3D world, if not everything, is going to be shifting out of our experience because it's not the same frequency. As the world is moving closer and closer towards a bifurcation, we are literally, yes, you may talk to people who don't think the same way, but it's going to be very difficult to maintain those relationships because energetically, we are being pumped with energies, frequencies from the universe, specifically from our sun, but beyond, to elevate our consciousness. And once your eyes open up, once you can see the goodness, the kindness, you're not going to tolerate. It's not going to be enjoyable. Well, let me rephrase it. You won't lose your joy, but it's going to be very boring to sit around and listen to somebody who's always complaining or blaming you for why they're not happy. that we tolerated it when we were all in 3D because, well, we kind of had to tolerate that relationship because we didn't want to be alone, and we would stay at a job because we were afraid we didn't find another job and didn't have the money to pay for the big house so that everybody could see how successful we are. So a lot of traps in the old world. In the new world, you're not going to tolerate that. That's why there's a huge movement for people downsizing, clearing things out, minimalism, tiny homes. I love those things. Moving towards efficiency because there's no more need for waste. There's a recognition of needing what you need when you need it, and not hoarding, not having more than is necessary, because you cannot, like they say, it's easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than for a rich man to get through that eye of the needle. And that's because a camel is not carrying, is not attached to all kinds of things, but a rich man, well, I've got the deed to my house, and I've got my plane, and I've got my this and my that. I got too many things that are not going to move me through the eye of the needle. And the eye of the needle is symbolical to, you've got to release everything that you did not come onto this planet with. We came in with these physical vessels, and that's it. Our mind, our heart, our soul, that's what we need to go back to God with, nothing more. And then from there will be added, but not for excess to hoard, but for excess to share. We are moving towards being a humanity where we will not want anybody hungry, because if you know that you are one, why would you want somebody hungry or hurting or cold? You would want to assist them. And, you know, it's really fascinating watching in so many ways. So many of us, I know I was so disconnected from what was happening across the world because we were so busy with what's happening in our own little world. When we become more aware of our oneness, we will not allow any one of our holy brothers and sisters to have less than what is necessary to have an enjoyable life, a basic life of food and shelter and the kinds of care that is necessary, so that everybody can find their connection to God and then extend their talents to the universe or to our planet. Because when you recognize that we're all one, you realize that everybody has a gift to give. When you're operating in separation, it's my gift. I got to protect my gift from you. I've got something, you don't have anything. Or only you have something and I'm the poor victim. I'm so low down here. It's always about separation, hierarchy. One has, one doesn't have. But in oneness, we all have equal talents, different talents, but equally as necessary for the co-creation of a beautiful, happy dream for all of us. So I'm going to go to paragraph 5. God's plan for salvation works simply because by following his direction or her direction, it doesn't matter, you seek your salvation where it is. But if you are to succeed, as God promises you will, you must be willing to seek there only. You can only go God's direction. You can't continue to go outside of you to try and find God when God is only inside of you. It doesn't mean you don't go to the church or the synagogue and pray to God. It doesn't mean you don't participate in those things if that matters to you. It doesn't mean you don't go into nature and go connect with God in that way. That's all okay. But when you are ready to have a conversation with God, you come inside. You sit in stillness, because a conversation with God is about listening. It's about in stillness, allowing ourselves to get the guidance that is necessary to let us know how to move out of this insane world. And once we practice listening to God to get out of the insanity, then you're plugged in, you're connected. Now your inspiration is going to come direct, and that's going to be so easy to do because it's what you've been practicing. It's what you've been learning to do while you were turning your back on all the things that you thought kept you safe. That is a real test for everybody who's awakening, is to walk away from that which was not of God, not of joy, not of happiness, not sustainable, not honoring of the equality of all the brothers and sisters. So it goes on to say, paragraph 3, so otherwise, other than seeking only for God. Otherwise, your purpose is divided and you will attempt to follow two plans for salvation that are diametrically opposed in all ways. The result can only bring confusion, misery, and a deep sense of failure and despair. You cannot continue. You know, I just had this experience not too long ago. You cannot continue worrying about, oh, I got to do this promotion and sell so many tickets to the event and generate so much. And then say, you know, God, I trust you. It's all going to get taken care of. Got to make a choice. And it's really interesting, for as many things as I have released over my journey, about 20-year journey now, released a lot that I'm not attached to. I really, in many ways, I'm such a free person, and I love it. And being able to say, you know what, I am no longer going to be having any concerns about money. I am trusting, because it's always shown up when it needed to show up. I am done thinking about next month. I'm done. Next week, I am done. And when I said I was done, because I made the choice to really trust in that sense. Absolutely only God. Just as I've trusted God for my well-being, just as I've trusted God for bringing the right people at the right time when I was supposed to meet them, for finding me the right home that I ever needed to live in, for arranging so many things in my life, because I'm entitled to miracles. I'm a divine, holy child of God. I was created to be on this planet and experience desires when they come from a place of holiness and for the greater good of all. That's the trick. And when I am thinking in ways of for the greater good of all, for everybody that I'm involved with, and I only want the best for every person that participates in whatever that might be, it always happens. It always gets taken care of. But I had this little money thing back there that every now and again, even though I've always had what I needed when I needed it, was in the back of my mind. Oh, I've got to plan this event, and I've got to, I need 2 more coaching clients to meet my coaching quota, blah, 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 blah. And I decided, no, I'm just not doing that anymore, because you have to make a choice. One, do you trust this or that? If you go back and forth, you can, but you're going to be a little bipolar. That's okay. But then you're going to get mad that God isn't answering your prayers because you're too busy chasing it yourself. And if you're chasing it in the direction that is not where God wants to take you, well, then you are going to be in misery because you are working so hard. You're asking God to help you, but you're following your own path because, oh, excuse me. Excuse me. So beautiful out here. It's snowing and it's absolutely gorgeous outside. Went outside for a little bit and I did get a little extra chilly. So, or maybe it's the cats, who knows? Anyhow, being able to make a decision is so crucial. So paragraph 6 says, how can you escape all this? The confusion back and forth, back and forth. Very simply. I love the way the Course in Miracles always says, very simply, everything is really simple. Aren't all of you students of the course, don't you just love it how it tells you truth is simple? It's simple. And you hear me say that all the time. It's simple. May not be easy, but it is simple. So sentence 2, very simply, this is how you escape this. The idea for today is the answer. And what is the idea for today? It's the title of the lesson. Only God's plan for salvation will work. All right. Sentence number 5. There can be no real conflict about this because there is no possible alternative to God's plan that will save you. There's only God, and then there's the ego. And ego is the blocks to God. So why would you go to the one that blocks what God wants you to have when God wants you to have all that you desire? I mean, when once that clicks in your mind and you realize, wow, so connecting to the infinite source of all that is, where all comes from, isn't that a better relationship than with the one that blocks it? It makes it seem like I get it. And we have lots of evidence in the world of people who amass all kinds of things. But are they really happy with it? That's the thing. God can be blessing them with all kinds of wonderful things, but maybe they're not enjoying it because their hearts are so filled with fear and worry of loss, concern of somebody robs them, or whatever it is that they're working through from, their conditioning, their trauma from childhood, and not able to accept what is without attachment. So when we become all attached to the wonderful things that God may be providing, it is listening to the ego. God could be providing. That could be your path. And that's all that I mean by God providing. God doesn't give us $5, but God gives us the opportunity to express ourselves so the $5 can come. So it can come in any way that it can come. But are we blocking it with our fears or insecurities? Because then it has to go away so that we can see the fear and the insecurity and choose again. Choose, oh, let me trust God that if this goes away, another will come. Why? Because I am the one who has to then extend my love, my joy, my creativity, all that is coming from me. I am the one who extends it out. You see, we got trained into becoming minions where we worked for other people and we did so much of it not creative. So we are not used to thinking that creativity flows from us. We're used to thinking that only hard work flows from us and that we do what they tell us to do. They're the creative ones. That's why they make more money. They're the talented athletes. That's why they make more money. My body's only designed to sweep floors. He uses his body to dunk basketballs. And he, of course, makes millions, but I only make $10 an hour. All of that is egoic bullshit. That's all that it is, to keep us separate and to keep us from finding the true source of creativity that it's inside of us. We have attached worth to different people based on what they do. We're moving back to finding our own self-worth. And from that place, we do whatever it is that inspires us. And it will always bring exactly what we need when we need it, because God wants us to be happy, healthy, free. That is the promise, but we have to unplug from the matrix first. Sentence 6 in paragraph 6 says, this is the only plan that is certain in its outcome, God's plan. His is the only plan that must succeed. Paragraph 7, let us practice recognizing this certainty today, and let us rejoice that there is an answer that what seems to be a conflict with no resolution possible. All things are possible with God. Salvation must be yours because of his plan, which cannot fail. And you know, salvation, I grew up Catholic, and salvation, oh my God, you know, I need God to save me from all these wicked things and save me, spare me from going to hell. That's not what the Course in Miracles says. Salvation is you save yourself from the insanity in your own head. That's what the salvation is. Only God's plan to follow your path of joy is the path of happiness, the path of inner peace. That is the only plan that will save us from our own mental insanity, the mental prison that we live inside of. All of the conditioning, until you have looked at every single belief that you have and sift through it. Who gave this to me? Is this a hand-me-down belief from mom, from grandma, from the church, from the government? Did this come to me from somebody else? Okay, I'm going to give that back. I only want to believe what is true for me according to God. And I'll believe that for everybody else. You know, all the censoring of people who have differing opinions, that's always the ego. The ego is the only one that blocks, because the ego is the only one that has fear. God, on the other hand, all of us can have different opinions, and God would be like, that's amazing. Why? Because everybody with different opinions means that the world is expanding with new ideas. Excuse me. So as we move through this 3D world, if you see censoring, if you see controlling, if you see hierarchy, if you see specialness, haves and have-nots, deserves and don't deserves, that is the ego blocking that God has said, not only are we diverse and supposed to be different, but we're supposed to express that and experience that equally. That's the part that the powers that be don't tell you, because that's an inconvenient truth. What? Everybody gets to be different and express themselves differently and do it their own way, and it's okay. Well, if you're confident, that doesn't scare you. But if you have an agenda, it scares the crap out of you, because now you got somebody who might come up with something that opposes your agenda. And that is what is so exciting to me right now, is that more and more of that is showing up, so that it's becoming more evident for those who have the eyes to to see and the ears to hear, because there has to be a willingness, and you're going to see that in a second here. All right, so paragraph number 8 says, now this is a lesson. So it is a daily lesson with a practice period. And as you know, I have read all of these lessons. I have them on my website. So if anybody wanted to follow the lessons from the Course in Miracles and have me read them and explain them, you know, those lessons are in my website, and you can purchase it. It is a purchased course. But here it tells us, if you were doing this on your own today, you would have a practice period. So begin the 2 longer practice periods for today by thinking about today's idea. So we're thinking about the idea that only God's plan for salvation will work. And realizing that it contains 2 parts, each making equal contribution to the whole. God's plan for your salvation will work, and other plans will not. Those are the 2 parts that you have to understand. So you got to make a choice. You're going to follow God's because it works, and you're going to give up the ego's because it doesn't. Do not allow yourself to become depressed or angry at the second part. It is inherent in the first. If God's works, it's natural that the egos cannot. So we've got to get comfortable, and most of us on this journey for a long time realize that in the beginning, when we begin to shift our consciousness from ego to God, we go through a period of depression, a period of feeling, I got to give up all my stuff. I've got to let go of all these things. I got to walk away from that church. I've got to leave this community. I've got to leave those friendships. There is some of that does happen, but it's always, always, always for the greater good. And that we don't realize until we're further down on that bridge, when we're shifting from ego to God, that we begin to walk down that bridge and we can look back and go, oh, wow, yeah, that was not the right job for me. That was not the right relationship for me. That was not the right community for me. And then you just keep moving. And as you move, you end up getting, as A Course in Miracles calls, you gather mighty companions that assist us and serve us and become our partners on this new journey of ascension. Then he goes on to say in sentence number 4, paragraph 8, and in the first is your full release from all your own insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. So here, my little grandson back there. So only God's plan will save us. That is what we are committing to, discovering God's plan so that we trust it. They have led to depression, but God's plan will succeed. So when we are trying to follow the ego, yes, of course, that's why so many people on this planet, 3D planet, are so depressed, or on medication, or on some kind of addiction, either drugs, alcohol, workaholics, or shopaholics, or me, margaritaholic was one of my favorite things. I used to love margaritas. But we would do whatever we needed to do to numb ourselves from the chase, from the depression of not achieving what we wanted, getting it or losing it, whatever that might be. So, but when we follow God's plan, this is what it does. It will lead to release and joy. So paragraph 9, number 9, remembering this, let us devote the remainder of the extended practice period to asking God to reveal his plan to us. Ask him very specifically. When you do these lessons every day, and this is the lesson that you land on, oh my goodness, you get to sit in contemplation, meditation, conversation with God when you begin to say, what would you have me do? And you stay quiet and listen. Where would you have me go? And you stay quiet and listen. What would you have me say, and to whom? And we stay quiet and listen. To shift to God being our master. And by that, there's no hierarchy. It is simply that we begin to access the truth inside of us that has a specific role to play, where we are supposed to be. We're supposed to do certain things and connect with certain people at a specific time for certain experiences to be had, all of it for the purpose for us to be happy. For all of that to happen, we've got to acknowledge that there is such a thing as synchronicity, and we begin to flow. But to flow with God, you also have to trust eternity. So if it doesn't happen in this lifetime, it'll happen in another one. And when your mind gets that peaceful that you're trusting, if not now, then whenever, you begin to break free from the barrier of time. Because now you're not thinking, oh, it's got to happen next week. It's got to happen next month. It's got to happen by the time I retire at 60. It's got to happen by, next year. I've got to have this thing. This is my goal for next year. That's why I don't do goals anymore. For the longest time, I wrote goals after goals for years, for 5 years, for 10 years. That was crazy. My mind was always focusing on what I didn't already have, that I needed to have a goal so I could achieve it. Talk about living in lack. No, it made me very motivated, and I made a whole lot of money. When I operated that way, because everybody else was doing it, we all had our, what was it called? The Covey, Brian, I can't remember, but anyhow, we were all trying to achieve things. Now, in my joy, in my happiness, I'm only expecting what is mine to be mine, what is mine to do to be done, what is most joyful and perfect for my experience to happen. So little by little, as I keep moving down this bridge away from the ego running my life to me choosing to let my God basically inspire me. That inspiration is coming from within me. It's not coming from out there. It's coming from my heart. And nothing that my heart desires ever leads me astray. It's ever not good for me. It's ever unhealthy for me. It's not at all. Because with the knowingness that I am here as an expression of the divine to be in service to humanity, everything is supporting us so that we can do what needs to be done in the right amount of time that it's supposed to be done. And that's where we cultivate patience and kindness and tolerance and trust and all of those beautiful things that allow us to experience peace and to experience joy. So the next paragraph here, and we're almost done with this. Paragraph 6. So give God full charge of the rest of the practice period, and let him tell you what needs to be done by you in his plan for your salvation. You see, if God created all of us, God knows where everybody is. God knows each of us is a piece of the puzzle that needs to be at the right place at the right time. Well, if we're receiving guidance and we are following the guidance, then we will be at the right place at the right time versus following the ego, which blocks the right place and right time and causes the perpetual wheel of karma where we got to keep repeating lessons because we didn't learn them the right way. It's so easy. This is why it's so simple to follow God's plan, because it's designed for ultimate joy and ultimate satisfaction. Oh my goodness. I wish I knew this when I was little, but now I'm going to make sure my grandson grows up knowing that this is the truth of who he is. It's so exciting. All right. So he will answer in proportion. This is where I said about willingness here. He will answer in proportion to your willingness to hear his voice. Refuse not to hear. The very fact that you are doing the exercises proves that you have some willingness to listen. This is enough to establish your claim to God's answer. All we are being asked to do is to quiet the mind. The only way to quiet the mind is to stop thinking those crazy thoughts of the egoic world. And you quiet the mind when you stop judging, when you stop blaming, when you stop being in fear, then the mind gets quiet because it doesn't have anything to talk about. That's what the ego does. Talk about all the things out there, all the things somebody did to you, to the blame, to the grievances and all of this. When you stop that, you can hear, well, what do I desire? I desire to listen to God. God, what would you desire for me? If the creative source that created me desires more for me, why would I stop that? Why wouldn't I allow that? Only if my mind has been conditioned to think that I'm less than, that I'm not worthy as. And if I'm believing those stories, then I cannot open myself up to what I'm entitled to, which is more than any of us can imagine. And let me tell you, it's not material. It's not material. Because when you achieve a place, a level of peace and a level of joy, there's no amount of money that you will ever trade for the peace and the joy that you feel inside. The trust that you have in God, the knowingness that you are eternal. There is no amount of money ever that can have you give that up. But here's what happens. You feel that inside of you. Now you become one that God says, okay, this one is not selfish. This one is here to share. This one is here to extend the kingdom. Let's bless this one's life in such a way that they can share this message, that they can share their joy, that they can share their idea, their whatever it is that's going to help the world, that's going to clean the waters, that's going to get rid of the, all the recycled plastic that's in the world. This one is going to be able to do amazing things because they're not doing them for themselves alone anymore. They're doing it for the greater good of all. That's what's so important. All right, so paragraph 10 says that in the shorter practice periods, because this gives you long periods and a short period during the same day, tell yourself often that God's plan for salvation and only his plan will work. Be alert to all temptation to hold grievances today and respond to them with this form of today's idea. Holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation, and only his plan will work. Like some of you who are in my mastery class, you cannot go around blaming anybody. That's something that we just don't do because it doesn't help the cause. Every time we blame somebody, we hold a grievance, we block ourselves from receiving the very thing that we desire from God. So how do you operate in alignment with God? Open yourself up to being entitled to the miracles and leave everybody else, the peanut gallery, out of it. So this is the last little section. So today, basically, try to remember the idea some 6 or 7 times an hour. There could be no better way to spend a half a minute or less than to remember the source of your salvation and to see it where it is. Only God's plan for salvation will work. And where is God? Right here, inside each and every one of us. We all have access to it. We're having to remember that. We're having to pull out of the church conditioning and come back in here. We don't need God in a church. We don't need angels and saints. We don't need any of those things to find God. As a matter of fact, Jesus was one of the teachers who showed us how to find God. And it was very simple. He said, God is within. Kingdom of heaven is within. Truth is simple. 2,000 years ago, he was crucified for speaking the truth because it was an inconvenient truth to those who wanted to be our gods. They wanted to be the idols that we worshiped, and they were outside of us. Today, we need to reclaim our power. Freedom starts with breaking free from the conditioning that we have received about God. Come back to the creative source within, whatever you want to call it that feels comfortable. Come back to the source, come back to Creator, come back inside, because there you will find the creativity, the joy, the peace, the what is next for you to do, the who to connect with, that will allow you to have a life that not only acts as a beacon of light that shines away for many more that are trying to escape, but they don't know how to escape because, well, the church doesn't teach them how to escape. Who escapes? Those of us who escape the church. Isn't that funny? And when we escape all of that insanity and we stand free, we become a beacon of light that we don't have to go tell them, hey, get out of that mess. You stand as a beacon of light, and our joy, our peace shines in such a way that people say, how are you so peaceful? With the insanity that is about to break in this world. And it has to. We're repeating patterns. Go back and read the Bible. Go back and read history. The Roman Empire fell. The Egyptian Empire fell. I mean, all of these things, they fell for a specific reason. And that's because the ego blocked God. Always, always, always with money over joy. That's it. Over freedom, we were lied to. That's it. But we were lied to because we incarnated to bring truth to the world. You can sit and have grievances and blame others for lying to you, or you can find your own truth and speak it. That's what awakening is all about. You come inside, get the truth of God, and then you share it with those who have ears to hear it and eyes to see it. That's the story for today, and I'm sticking with it. All right, so I want to hear from you. Did anybody get any nuggets from today's message that you want to share with us, if you feel like it? And then we will conclude for the day, and I will see you guys next week. All right, who got a nugget? Yes, Crystal. Let's unmute you. There we go.
Well, you reminded me of the KISS technique, keep it simple, soul. And just to ask the question, what should I be doing now? Where should I be going? I mean, that's so simple, actually, if you think about it.
Yes.
They're not really difficult to do, and then just to be able to sit down and listen. So I'd say that's a pretty good, powerful nugget.
Yes, and ask God, and not the ego, for what to do.
But there's the trick, right?
There's the rub. There's a rub. Because yeah, my ego usually wants to do something other than what God wants me to do.
Well, is that the difference between what I want and what I need?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yes.
Mhm.
Well, it usually the difference is what's in service to the greater good and what's selfish. That's how you can see what's fear-based, what's love-based, what's just in it for me or what's in it for the greater good, because we are being moved. One of the reasons that we have been conditioned for everybody to live in their own little house is to box us into separation even further. So we are our own little house in our own little community, in our own little town, in our own little state, in our own little country, in our own little, continent. Because the more that we are maintained separate, the less we think about others. So waking up is breaking free from the illusion of separation, which means that we've got to be thinking, how does this action serve the greater good? And it always is going to be of service in one way or another. In one way or another. Beautiful. Thank you. Anybody else get a nugget today that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I did, Laina.
Yes, Miss Cat.
I wrote down what you said about hold on, let's see. I'm just going to put myself on the screen here. Hi. I wrote down basically I said, God, I trust in you, show me the way, and that only God's plan for salvation would work. And I love, just sit down and say, what would you have me do? It's just a great reminder. And I've been doing that. And it's a part of the healing, and it's a part of it's just a beautiful reminder to stay on track.
It is. It really is.
What I know is true.
It's so simple. So simple. And salvation is nothing more than to save ourselves, spare ourselves all that insanity in our own head, all that misinformation and fear and jealousy and worry and concern. That's what we're saving ourselves from. It's craziness in our heads.
Yeah, so I appreciate, I really like this lesson today, and I'm happy you made the call.
Oh, I'm so glad you joined us. So glad you joined us. Thank you so much, Kat. All right, anybody else? Miss Natalia, good to see your beautiful face.
Oh, hello. Yeah, I loved it. And it's just the simplest, basic things that just like surprised me so much. And I'm like, all of this, but just again, talking about that we always place everything outside of us, salvation outside of us, or danger outside of us, and how we're using all the events or people outside of us to keep ourselves out of peace and in unhappiness. Just to hear it again, I was like, that's just so simple. And I'm talking to a particular friend of mine who is like, oh, blah, 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 if I did this, or if they did this. I was like, just like Laina says, she knows you, just admit that I'm using my powers to keep myself out of happiness. You just, at least you admitting that I am the creator, and that's how I choose to use my powers now. It's okay.
It's
But
okay.
at least you admitting that you are the creator, even you creating crap, whatever, fertilizer for the future. And I was listening just yesterday. I had the argument or whatever. It wasn't argument. I was the one who was yelling at my husband. La, 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 la. And I was like, yeah, because he can't be happy because he's doing or not doing something. I was like, oh dear God, it's so funny. Like, it's interesting how ego using it. And we're like, yeah. And I liked it that it just very simple too. We can't create new because we're too busy fighting old.
Exactly.
Oh, dear
Exactly.
God, it's so simple, but yeah.
Yeah. And you know,
Yeah.
the old is crumbling around us because there are too many of us that are not feeding that machine anymore. And every system is going to change. We see the education system is going to completely be transformed because the parents are taking power back. The medical system is going to totally be transformed because healing is going to come back from within. We are going to go to those doctors who are suggesting that we do something to activate our own internal healing, to use natural methods, to use ways of like chiropractic where we're allowing our own chi to flow. We are going back to doing the things that are simple and basic. And by the way, don't cost that much. As we move away from having these conglomerates that it's all about the money and the red tape and the insanity that's breaking down. But one of the most important things that is breaking down right now, well, I'm going to say two of the most important things, is the government having power outside of us and the media telling us what is true. So those things are breaking down because we want to come inside so that we have the ability to feel truth. Because when you feel the frequency of truth, you will know who to believe and not to believe while we're navigating this world. And it's certainly not going to be politicians who are elected to be servant leaders, not to control. So there's a whole flipping upside down of what's happening, all because our ego convinced us that our salvation was by giving our power away. So as you do it in your own home with your husband or me with my children, as within, so without, once you feel comfortable inside that you're the one creating your own reality and you're either sane or insane and it's all you won't tolerate insanity outside of you because you will unplug from that. And then if it's yours to participate in changing it, you will. If it's yours to participate in praying for it, you will. If it's yours to participate in voting for it only, you will. What we need to do will be told to us because there is a plan for a happy world, but we need all the pieces to come out of the old, be willing to come to the new. Then we will be told where to go, what to do, and all those pieces of the puzzle will be rearranged. You know, I don't know if you ever play with a puzzle. I can't remember. I haven't seen too many of these, but when I was younger, I had a puzzle that on one side, you know, the pieces, the same pieces. On one side, it had one image. On the other side, it had a totally different image. And if you didn't put the right piece on the right side, it was backwards. So that's what's happening here. We have been used to one image. We need to flip it completely upside down and get the other image. But what God wants for us, and we're all the same pieces of the puzzle, we need to come to God, be willing to do things that are for the greater good of everybody. We pull out of the greed and we move into grace. That is when we're going to experience a new earth. Because we have to be the change we want to see in the world. We have to flip ourselves inside out to be the other side of the puzzle.
Absolutely. It's inside out and upside down or right side up. But it's like exactly opposite to ego, I noticed. And while you were talking, you just stopped talking about not making plans anymore. And a friend of mine texted me. And she was at work at the seminar, something, what are your passions? What are your goals? Blah, blah, blah. She sent me a little snippet of the page that they filling up. What are your purpose? And you just finished talking about not setting goals anymore. And she's writing to me and she's in a profession that you used to be before the awakening. And she is writing to me like, oh my God, horror, horror, horror. I have no dream. I have no plans. I have no dream. Oh my God. I was like, awesome. That means you're living in it now. She's like, oh my God, you're such an optimist. I was like, I'm listening Laina right now. She just talked about it.
Well, you know, it's and setting goals was really important for a while for me because it gave me some direction, but that was a step that I had to take until eventually I could let them go. And I prefer to live like a leaf and let the blow win me. I like that now. Before, hell no. But it's all good. It is all good. It's so exciting. Well, I'm so grateful you guys were all here with me today and had this wonderful conversation. I do want to leave you only with this thing. Besides, only God's plan will work for your happiness and your joy. But as the world continues to get crazier, don't go running out to the world to find your peace. Don't go out there and ask, why are they doing that? Come inside to God and ask God, what is yours to do? It is going to get very turbulent. So keep your seatbelts on till this insane ride comes to a complete stop. And it will. But until then, we need to stop playing that game and be the change we want to see in the world. God needs all of us to be willing to be happy, peaceful people so that we can be the examples that the world needs right now more than anything, that there is another way and we are the way. As Jesus taught, he was the way for us. As Buddha taught, he was the way for some. As Gandhi taught, he was the way for others. Anyways, I love you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Same link.
Thank you, Laina.
Bye, everybody.
You. Bye.
Yuri, you made this happen. So this is all for you.
I can't take the credit. It was God.
There you
Meant to
go.
be.
There you go. All right, everybody. Love you all. Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.